Hi, I am Lindsay Robertson. I am a lead of the data science track, and I thank you for joining us today. The session that we are about to start is the quality software begins with a quality mindset, and we are pleased to welcome our amazing speaker, Natalie Southwell, today. Natalie is a senior manager of software engineering at a Fortune 50 company with an executive MBA and a PMP certification in project management. She has dedicated over 2 decades of her life to big box retail and corporate environments, particularly in information technology. She's a seasoned leader with a diverse background in specializing in software and systems engineering management for cybersecurity, legal IT, and supply chain IT. She built out a well-functioning PMO and prides herself on quality execution and implementations. Thank you, Natalie, for being here today. I will now pass the session over to you.
Awesome. Lindsay, thank you so much for the introduction and welcome everyone who's on the call. I want to first of all, thank Women Who Code Dev Summit for allowing me to be a speaker on this stage. I'm really excited to be here. And so we'll get started. The points I'd like to talk about today is the importance of having a quality mindset, what quality is not, quality and the bumblebee metaphor, creating a culture of quality. So let's start with a quote. Quality is everyone's responsibility. Everyone's responsibility. That includes the product managers, the project managers, the engineers. It includes the users. It includes everyone that is part of any type of feature enrichment or development or any type of phase within the project. And this quote comes from W. Edwards Deming. The importance of having a quality mindset really is to ensure that from a consistency and focus perspective, that individuals are, number one, they have attention to detail, there's continuous improvement, and they ensure that the end product is fit for its intended use. A quality mindset implies not just considering what the software should do, but rather how it should do it. And that's one of the things that sometimes we miss. We're focused on what the software should do, but not necessarily how we should do it, in the vein of, okay, we have some requirements or there's certain data, but we're not thinking about how we protect that data, what type of data we are targeting during the requirements phase. And so there should be a thorough understanding of the customer's needs, as well as a commitment to rigorous testing, followed by an unwavering adherence to industry standards. So the importance of having a quality mindset is first and foremost before you can even start at any phase of the life cycle. What quality is not? Quality is not a set of unused tools and standards. It's not where, as an engineer, you may not be in tune to the latest security policies or the latest standards. And so the idea is to ensure that you're constantly learning and you're constantly giving yourself an opportunity to adhere to standards and recognize when things change. Also, it's not a simple checklist. A lot of times we find that documentation is done just for the sake of checking a box or saying, okay, we have a design diagram, but it's not really indicative of the full scope of what the user really needs. And it's not ambiguity. Sometimes in software engineering, there's a lot of ambiguity. And when there's ambiguity, there's uncertainty, there lacks clarity. And so in order to ensure that quality is at the forefront, those questions that you may have, they need to be answered. And so ambiguity is not something that quality is. Let's consider the bumblebee. And this analogy or the reason that I selected the bumblebee is because the bumblebee does a lot of collaboration with the hive. They do a lot of collaboration with, in terms of they're hardworking and they're wanting to make sure that from a quality perspective that the honey is produced in a manner that's always sweet. And so there's a 4-step process in the honey making scenario. So number 1 is foraging. Number 2, enzyme addition and storage evaporation. There's also the capping of the honey. And then number 4, the harvesting, filtering, and the bottling. As you can see, these can be very indicative and they can cross over, whether it's an agile environment or an SDLC environment. And I'll walk you through that process. So for foraging process, the very first thing that the worker bees do is they gather nectar from the flowers. And they're very specific about which flowers they select from. And it's critical. It's a critical and it's a very intricate process. It's not just any flower. They are specific to, okay, what are the requirements? And so a liken to as a software engineer or someone who is a product manager or working in this environment, when you're specific to identifying the criticality of certain requirements and prioritize what may be the most valuable features to select from in terms of your backlog, it is necessary to consider the performance, the security, the usability of certain aspects right from the beginning. Good communication with all your stakeholders, the skills, just being thorough at this point can help prevent misunderstandings and lead and basically avoid issues down the line. The enzyme addition and evaporation process, this is where the nectar from the bee is just transformed into honey. And then in the beehive, what they do is they have this honey in a separate stomach. So there's multiple stomachs, so in the separate stomach, and they share this honey with the other bees in the hive. And what they do is they transform this enzyme. The enzyme is what provides the nutrients within the honey that is critical. So it's like transforming raw requirements into actionable user stories or code. And as the bee, what we continually do is refine and simplify our code, simplify the requirements until we reach our desired product. Software teams transform requirements into a design blueprint, and high quality designs leads to a strong foundation for the subsequent development. Each one of those phases, which reduces the chance of major issues down the line. The next cycle within this process is capping the honey. When the honey is ready, it's sealed. And so what you typically see are these little holes that are covered with these caps. Now, this process aligns against the deployment process where you want everything to kind of go smoothly. And so you have your checks and balance in place. You maybe using you have a standard CI/CD pipeline that allows you to deploy. This is the part where right before that stage, you have rigorous testing. And so they're making sure that these caps are sealed. So you're making sure that your requirements are tested. You're considering things that you may have not thought about or how the system may be used. So every scenario that you can think of at each one of those layers to challenge those that are on the team to make sure that nothing has been forgotten about. The aim should be to find the fixes, to find and fix issues before the product even reaches the end user. Then we have the final stage, which is harvesting, filtering, and bottling. And for the beekeepers, the final stage involves collecting the honey. And this is a very delicate process. As you can see, there is an opportunity to be bitten. There's an opportunity to be stung by the bees. And so what the beekeeper is doing, she's covered. And so just like with software requirements and so forth, the idea is to make sure that from each phase you have the specific elements covered. Releasing your software and making sure that you have maintenance and you're thinking about how does this software recover in the event that there is failure. Once you're done and once you've implemented something, you don't walk away from it. As part of the harvesting process, you want to make sure that there are patches, there's continual improvement, maybe refactoring, maybe there's an opportunity as the bee, they filter on the honey, they maintain, they improve, and they adapt to changes. So all of these, this parallelism that I'm describing to you is essential when it comes to developing and releasing quality software. Creating a culture of a quality mindset. Essentially, you must be intentional and you incorporate a quality mindset. So quality should be included in every phase of the process, as stated before, from inception to deployment to maintenance, regardless of any type of life cycle you're in, whether you're in an agile, iterative life cycle, or even if you're in a life cycle, waterfall life cycle, just whatever that life cycle is. The idea is for early detection and an opportunity to correlate any issues with anything that you may have found throughout that process. And number two is continual refinement. And so in deploying or creating a culture of a quality mindset, you want to continue with learning and improve consistently, encouraging everyone on the team to do so, to do their best work. A lot of it is just making sure that if you find something wrong, not overlooking it, but to also to learn from your mistake, to share those mistakes with others, so that you can continually seek ways to improve. And just regular feedback, regular communication with your teams and stakeholders will help you create this culture of a quality mindset. And then finally, be a champion of quality. Recognize those who contribute to improving quality, because this sets standards. Others would like to do what you do, and especially you'll be known for someone that produces quality outputs and quality products, as well as quality features. And then when leadership champions this level of diligence, what it does, it makes everyone want to be a part of the innovation, recognizing that through formal awards and recognition, this is a way that you can say thank you and to keep your team inspired. So like the intricacies of a bee crafting their honey, strive for quality in every phase of your software journey. Software is not just, having a quality mindset is not just a destination, but it's a journey. There's a constant evolution of the process. There's constant learning, improvements. When you have, when you're defining the definition of done, right? Sometimes that may change, but you're never really done with your software once it's implemented, because you want to make sure that, again, there's the security that you're keeping up with, and that you're doing things that ensure that the company has a good reputation for employing quality, and that your customers are satisfied. These are how you kind of shape having a quality mind. So I'd like to thank you, and I'll stop sharing now.
That was such an excellent talk. I really do appreciate spending time to think about mindset and how to encourage those around you to have the right mindset as a team. These are there's so many soft skills that kind of get incorporated into that quality mindset and that framework that you laid out so nicely with the bee analogy for us. I was wondering, I just wanted to ask if you had any frameworks that you developed that, kind of incorporated that analogy into your professional world.
Now you've cut out on me. I didn't hear the final part of the question, but I think I've been. Oh. There you are. There you are. So I'll be honest, Lindsay. This is an analogy that just came up recently as part of this talk. I think it is the parallelism is, and the metaphor behind it is something that is definitely you can integrate it and apply that type of knowledge. So while I haven't used that framework, it's definitely one that can be leveraged going forward.
That's good news. I would like to go ahead and open up the Q&A for any questions participants might have for our speaker here. So everyone can feel free to thank Natalie, bring up your questions, your concerns. We have plenty of time here to address anything you'd like to discuss. We have a nice question here in the chat. How do you deal with difficult team members? A burning question on all of our minds.
That's a really great question. And sometimes in dealing with difficult team members, they need to understand the value of why you're asking them to do something, particularly like if you don't understand what it means to them or for them, there's a lack of buy-in. So when the team members are difficult, sometimes you have those one-off conversations to really understand what's driving their either frustration or what's driving their uncertainty about why your desire for quality is so important. A lot of times when you partner with them, it makes it easier when they understand that you're coming from a mindset of, okay, we're here to make sure that we satisfy our customers, we produce a reputation for our company, and that we prevent any type of security vulnerabilities as we're developing. So just having those one-on-ones, I think, is very helpful, and also just helping them to understand really the reason behind that, or what happens when you lack quality, right? You're up at nights, you have vulnerabilities, you have, defects, you have just a number of issues that if you partnered from the onset, you would eliminate some of those errors and issues.
That's fantastic advice. I am going to leave the Q&A open for a few more moments. And while everyone's deciding what it is they'd like to ask you, I'd kind of like to explore some of your advice to moving into a management position where you can deal with some of these topics. How can you explain your career journey for us a little bit, just a high level, and any advice you might have for a young professional who might be interested in pursuing this type of leadership?
Absolutely. My journey was not a straight line. I went from project management to program management, and then I've gone from program management to software engineer management, and then system engineer management. Each one of those verticals or roles, if you will, required a new set of learning and a new way of thinking. And so one of the things I'd like to recommend is to have a lens that allows you to breathe through different areas of the organization so that you can learn from those areas and then apply that knowledge so that you can in fact perform in the different areas. And as you are gaining experience, a lot of times leadership will recognize that and pull you up and advocate for you. And so I found that I had a lot of advocation for me. I made sure that as I was working, that people saw some of the improvements that I was making. And when you're seen, then therefore it makes it easy for you to kind of not, I wouldn't say be your own advocate, but allow those that are at the table to advocate for you. And then therefore those opportunities and those doors can open for you.
Fantastic. And that's, again, just so many great nuggets for, career advice and for applying this thinking into your day-to-day. I was just curious to know, with the PMO that you set up, for anyone who's struggling to kind of get that type of architecture, in place to manage a successful PMO, do you have any words of wisdom for someone starting from scratch?
Yeah, I think so. For me, having a background in audit, understanding some of the vulnerabilities that we were having, defining the processes in the beginning, and basically looking from a SOX perspective. Like, I was in a financial area, and so when changes were made by developers and so forth, without seeking approval of those changes, they violated the process. So I had to establish a process. So it started with me initiating processes for making certain changes. And then it eventually went to, okay, we need a more formalized standard, a way of doing business, which is then I introduced the charter, building out the cost benefit analysis. What's the benefit of this work that we're doing? Who does it impact? Who are our stakeholders? And so a lot of times when you see a problem, the first thing to do is to recognize that problem. And as you are working to solve that problem, it will allow you to create. And that's how I was able to kind of create an PM at the last company that I was at. I saw the problems. One thing led to another. It's a trickle-down effect where you continue to improve as you see that there are errors or vulnerabilities that prevent you from being successful.
That's great. Miriam is wondering how you deal with an employee with toxic or narcissistic team members or even managers. It's kind of a lead-in from the last question we discussed about dealing with difficult teammates, but this might be a little bit more specific.
Yeah, having a narcissistic team member, that's a tough one because they never really see themselves with having the problem. So I'm not sure to the degree in terms of what this person has or hasn't done, but if they are not recognizing their need to help, I don't know, have you talked with your leadership about it? Have you tried to get help with, sometimes you may need a roadblock or some type of top cover to help you manage through that, particularly if you are in a lateral position or if they are a peer. But most of the time, you can, again, even for someone that is if there's a toxic scenario, help them to understand the reason behind why something is important, particularly as relates to what's a good example, definition of done, right? They're saying that, dashboards aren't necessary or monitoring is not necessary. And so they implement their software without those things. But yet when there's a problem, then you lack the visibility. It takes a long time to recover. So the mean time to recover extends. So it's just really understanding how big of a problem is it. If it's too big where you can handle it on your own, I advise to really bring in your leadership to help with that person. So that's really how I would handle that difficult team member.
Again, I can't agree more. I think that's fantastic advice, and I'll definitely take that to heart myself in the interim. And then, if you have a few more moments too, I'd like to kind of address some of the hard skills that might have led into you developing these mindsets and these capabilities for your organizations that young professionals should explore. What kind of helped you best?
Yeah, so one of the things that I was so focused on quality, I even became a champion of technical excellence. I was in a career and a role that was had a lot of issues, and I went over to a team, and this team every day there was old software, there was software that was not refactored, and so there were constant problems. So it prevented us from scaling and keeping up with the demands of our users, and so quality became just one of the top things that I employ when I'm working with team members and making sure that throughout the life cycle, that's the forefront and that's something that is embedded from the beginning. It's not when you get to the end when it's like, oh, when you're testing, okay, let me just, I have 300 test cases. It starts with the unit test cases. It starts with making sure you have code coverage and making sure that you have enough coverage in different areas that it prevents those one-offs. Now, you will have some things that fall through the cracks, and you'll mitigate those. But I guess the goal that I'm trying to say is when your mindset is right from the beginning, and you are stopping to pause, you are eliminating the ambiguity. You're asking questions. Do you really mean this from the user? Are you have you thought about the data that we are what type of data this is, again, what type of performance do we need to scale, how much load are we expecting? All of these questions are essential from the beginning, as opposed to now that you've designed something and it cannot scale or it doesn't have the performance that's necessary to hold the load or the demand that's coming in. So.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. Sure. And helping instill quality mindsets in all of us. And hopefully we can do the same in our team members as well. But we certainly want to thank you so much for your time, Natalie. You are on vacation, and so it's very nice of you to share that with us. And we definitely appreciate all you've come to teach us today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I think all of those that are in the audience, thank you for the questions. I hope those were helpful. And again, thanks for allowing me to be on the stage today. Thank you.